Alright, MLP fans, welcome back to part 2 of the finale. Yesterday was the fun deck, and today is going to be the competitive deck. In my opinion, this is the strongest deck in the metagame. A lot of people aren't even going to watch the video and are going to immediately comment about how it's actually a white-yellow that is controlling the metagame, a deck called Ballroom Blitz. I didn't know about it at the beginning of the month, but I know about it now, guys. You don't have to remind me. I've seen a lot of duels using the Ballroom Blitz deck now, and here's my main problem with the Ballroom Blitz deck. While yes, it is a very, very tight and strong competitive deck, it just doesn't have any synergy with itself. The reason the deck works so well is because yellow is a very powerful color, and so is white. Ballroom Blitz decks are just yellow rush decks that tech in white so that they can use Rarity Truly Outrageous. That is all a Ballroom Blitz deck is. The two colors don't even really talk to each other. They just happen to both be good at the same time. And you guys can dislike this video and leave all kinds of bad comments down below all you want to, but I believe if somebody were to put together the deck that I'm going to show you today and actually compete with it, it would be a strong competitor with Ballroom Blitz. And it would have the edge that the deck actually has synergy within itself. Also, I know a lot of you are going to respond with, this is stupid, this deck is not the strongest deck, I could crush this deck between my thighs, it's so weak. And hey, I don't mind it. If you think something's better, put it in the comments below. I love reading that kind of stuff. But first, you have to understand what my definition of strong is. In my eyes, a quote-unquote strong deck has to be one that can consistently do well in matches even if it doesn't win. It has to be able to consistently pull off its core strategy. The core strategy you're pulling off has to be something that can actually win you the game. And the deck has to be made in a way that if your main strategy isn't pulled off, you have to have enough contingency plans in the deck to win even without it. A strong deck is a consistent deck. That is my idea of strength. And I know a lot of people are afraid to say that one deck is the strongest or one deck is superior to another deck right now, but I'm just gonna have the balls to come out and say it. I believe that this deck could potentially be the #1 deck if somebody would take it seriously and actually try it out. I'm not a tournament player. I don't live in an area that plays tournaments. I don't live anywhere near a place that plays tournaments, and I probably never will. But if one of you lives somewhere near maybe like a Nationals or something, then maybe you should try this deck out and do pretty well with it. It would just make me so proud as an MLP YouTuber. Okay, I've stalled for like 3 minutes, so let's get on to actually doing something, shall we? As always, if you're just here to net deck the deck list, and here it is, please enjoy. All I ask is that you leave me a like on your way out. For the rest of us, before we start looking at cards in depth, I want to talk about the actual list itself. I think this is the way that a deck that's going to overtake the meta should look. And I'm not just being full of myself and talking about the cards. No, I'm talking about the actual list itself. I think a deck, in order to survive right now, needs to have face-off potential. Since there's a limit to how many friends you can actually keep in play at the end of each turn, in your home, I think having a whole bunch of friends to play is actually slightly less useful right now, and it's better to have more non-friend cards, because non-friend cards have very high power and very high potential to win face-offs. This is all, of course, just my opinion, but, you know, that's what I'm going with. The main we'll be using for this deck is the first Rainbow Dash. All you gotta do is confront this card's problem with a Troublemaker. Ooh, you're just tough. It doesn't even say it has to be a face-up Troublemaker. It just says if you have a Troublemaker. To counterbalance, we are running a deck with 8 Troublemakers to make sure that we can get a Troublemaker as quickly as possible. But the great thing is, we actually don't even need to flip Rainbow Dash for this deck to work. Not at all. The cards in the deck pretty much do the job as well as you would imagine, but if we can flip Rainbow Dash, then it's actually another way to chauffeur around cards. She has Swift, so you can pay 1 to move 3 power onto a problem, and then pay 1 more to move another character. So it's pretty much like giving your Rarity Truly Outrageous Swift or any other card that you want Swift, like a Holly Dash, which I'll be explaining a little later. I've already said my piece with Rarity Truly Outrageous. I believe it is the strongest card in the metagame. And what's my definition of strength, ladies and gentlemen? This is the card that can most consistently lead to you winning the game. If you're somebody who bases your strength off of face-off winning potential, off of hardest to kill, off of all of these other things, then you're not going to see this as the strongest card. You're just going to see it as a really good tech card. But in my opinion, it's the strongest because if you pull it off, it will most consistently win you games. A lot of decks are running this as a tech card, just kind of something to throw in to help you win the game if your main strategy doesn't fall off, whatever. But we're actually going to run this as the main core of the deck. Some of the newer players actually don't even understand why Rarity Truly Outrageous is seen as such an, forgive this, but outrageously powerful card. Well, I'll give you a scenario. Let's say you've been sitting around for like 5 turns just collecting action points, not playing anything, just getting everything ready. You have one of these in your hand and, it's whatever. You're just waiting on your action points. Your opponent in this time has gotten like 5 action points, and the current problem that's on the board right now has a bonus of 3. You finally draw the last card you need after like 5 or 6 turns of waiting. Let's say you have Rarity Truly Outrageous and Holly Dash, and you were just waiting on, let's say, a Sapphire Shores. You play all of the cards that you just got. So Holly Dash, Rarity, and Sapphire all go towards the problem with 3 bonus. Now you get 1 point automatically for solving the problem. You get a bonus of 3 because you were the first one to solve the problem. You should always be the first one to solve the problem when it's a deck like this. So now you're at 4, and then you move Rarity home, and now you're at 7. In 1 turn, you are now halfway towards winning the game. And honestly, your opponent can't do anything about it at this point unless they have something like a downright dangerous in their hand. A face-off doesn't occur because you're no longer solving the problem when the face-off step comes around. Your opponent can pile 30 power onto that problem and just wait to crush your face in a face-off, and they can never do it because a face-off can never occur because you never keep enough power on the problem when the face-off step occurs. They just have to sit there and get their 1 victory point. So let's say you end your turn and your opponent does whatever. It doesn't even matter, okay? Your opponent's turn doesn't even matter when you're playing a deck like this. As long as nothing happens to Rarity, then you're good. And your opponent doesn't happen to have any answer to Rarity in their hand and just ends their turn. Your turn begins. Remember, we're at 7 action points. We got 7 action points in 1 turn. You pay the 2 action points, you move Rarity onto the problem, you get 1 for solving, which puts you at 8, and then you move her home, which puts you at 11. You end your turn. Your opponent hasn't drawn their downright dangerous or their Tangled Koifur or anything that would actually allow them to do something against you. So they do what they can and they end their turn. On your turn, you pay the 2 to move Rarity over there. You get 1 for solving, which puts you at 12. You move her home, which puts you at 15. You automatically win the game. When Rarity Truly Outrageous actually has a deck built around her, the way the game works is this. As soon as she hits the board, your opponent has 2 turns to do something about it, or they immediately lose the game. If they're not playing purple, white, or pink, they don't even have an answer, because they can't move Rarity. They can't use downright dangerous to snipe it, and they don't have a Tangled Koifur. Some people's arguments are it takes way too long to set up, so like your opponent can just win in like the 5 turns that you're sitting and waiting. And that's possible, I guess, but if you're playing the deck correctly, it doesn't always go down like that. It's not like this is our only card. We do have other cards to deal with what our opponent is doing. It just happens to be that this is our win condition. An even more fun fact: Rarity stacks on top of itself. Let's say, for example, you have an action shot at a problem which solves the color requirement. Let's say you need 4 blue, 3 non-blue, so you have action shot and Holly Dash. You play 3 Rarity Truly Outrageous onto the problem. You solve it, you go up to 1. You get the bonus points, you go up to 4. You move 3 rarities home, which totally works because you still have enough to solve it after moving each rarity home. You get 9 more points, you go up to 13. Yeah, your opponent gets to have a face-off with you now because now you have Holly Dash and Action Shot and you're solving the problem, but who cares? Even if they win and they get the 3 bonus action points. Like, what does that affect you any? Unless your opponent can immediately win the game when their turn comes around, all you have to do is, when it comes to your turn again, move some ponies over there and immediately win the game because you solve the problem and you get the bonus and you win. GG. If you don't get the bonus, if you aren't the first one to solve it or something, then you solve it, you get the 1 point, you move Rarity home. GG. This card leads to the most consistent automatic wins, and that is why I consider it the most powerful card in the metagame. Holy crap, we talked for like almost 10 minutes on just this one card. This is not going to be a short video. I apologize. Action Shot, we've already talked about him in a bunch of other decks. He is probably the strongest non-requirement white card in the game. He has another card +4 power, which doesn't really matter here, with the exception maybe of giving your +4 power to a blue character and solving some blue requirements or something, I don't know. The main thing to pay attention to here is he has exactly 3 white power. So for our 3 bonus point problems, he can fulfill the white requirement if it's one of the 4 blue, 3 non-blue, and if it's one of the 4 white, 3 non-white, then all we have to do is give him a Chic Beret and he can fulfill the white. Overall, having 3 power is really a godsend. Sapphire's pretty much a vanilla in this deck. There's no reason to run this over like a Sugar Twist if you happen to have Sugar Twist. In fact, Sugar Twist is a lot cuter than this card. I don't know, if your opponent wastes something like a Chicken Costume or a Tangled Koifur on this, they're an idiot, but if they happen to do it, I guess like that 1 in 1,000 chance that they do it, then you can get rid of it and put a Chic Beret in play for free. The main reason we're playing it, obviously, is because it has that 2 white power, and it has no requirements. We need to be running a lot of cards that don't have color requirements for white, because we want to be playing Rarity Truly Outrageous as early as possible. We can pay the 2 for this, and then play the 3 for Rarity Truly Outrageous immediately afterwards. Octavia is my favorite card, so you're obviously going to see it here. The main reason it's here is because if you just happen to be super unlucky, it's been like 6-7 turns, you still don't have a Rarity in your hand, you need some kind of backup plan. If you put Octavia out there, then it creates immediate pressure for your opponent, and it creates a field that they have to work around. It slows them down. If you absolutely need to stall out, you can just use this card to stall them out, make it so that they don't want to move to a problem because it just costs them too much. Overall, it's just a really good card. Also, it has a 2-color requirement, which is met if we can get either of our no requirements in play. It has 4 power, so it can solve every single problem in our deck, and all of that is very important too. Every single card I have is handpicked down to every single detail being important towards you winning the game. On the blue side, we have Holly Dash, because Holly Dash is the most powerful card next to Rarity. It has 4 power, so it can meet every single color requirement for the problems in our problem deck. A color requirement of 2 blue. As soon as we flip our main, then this card can be played. 4 action points, it pays for itself with power, and when we move it out of choice, then we can move something else for free. The main thing that makes these cards so powerful is, well, the obvious one, you can move this card and then move Rarity Truly Outrageous for free, and that is super awesome. The super powerful movement is what gives this deck an edge over a lot of other top tier decks, because this actually has synergy within itself. The blue is there to show for a white around, and it's fantastic. But the thing that's truly broken about this, and that nobody has caught on to yet, and is confirmed, like you can go back and watch my Deck Doctor video for more information on this, but it is confirmed, if you move a Holly Dash, and you have another Holly Dash, you can move that Holly Dash for free. And then you can proc that Holly Dash's effect to move another Holly Dash for free. And then proc that Holly Dash's effect, and then move Wildfire for free. And then proc Wildfire's effect, move another Wildfire for free. Proc that Wildfire's effect, move another... You see how ridiculous this can get? Pretty much, if you can get multiple Holly Dashes in play, then you can move all of them for free on top of something else. If something happens with your Rarity Truly Outrageouses and you need to win face-offs, then just switch plans. Just pile everything onto a problem so that you can win as many face-offs as possible. Versatility is not overrated. Wildfire, exact same reasons as Holly Dash. If we move this with a Holly Dash, we can proc its effect and move something else as well. Only has a 2-color requirement, so we can play it as soon as we flip our Rainbow Dash. It only has 2 power, which makes it a lot less useful, but if we give it a Chic Beret, then it can count as 3 power towards either white or blue, which is good. She's mainly there for when we aren't pulling off Rarity Truly Outrageous and we need to get bonus points through just regular conventional means. Cloud Chaser is free action points, which is always good. You'd be surprised, but Cloud Chaser actually isn't as useful in this deck as she is in a lot of other decks, but she allows us to pull off our strategies 1 or 2 turns earlier, and sometimes that 1 or 2 turns earlier is what decides the winner and the loser. Scootaloo is kind of my tech. You're not going to find it in a lot of blue-white decks. I'm using it here because we're going to be playing a lot of Troublemakers, and she saves us action points in the long run. A lot of people prefer to run the 1 cost 2 power, and I understand that because it's paying for more than its own power. It's 1 cost for 2 power. But in my eyes, something like this is even better than that because, number 1, it's only got 1 color requirement, so we can do it even if we haven't flipped our Rainbow Dash. And number 2, because it saves us every single time we play a Troublemaker, if we happen to play 1 Troublemaker after playing this card, then we've saved the exact same amount because we've pretty much paid 1 for 2 power because we also got the 1 free point back from playing the Troublemaker. If we happen to play 2 Troublemakers, then we've actually pretty much gotten this card for free because we would have paid 2 for the Troublemakers anyway. It meets color requirements, and if you happen to flip Rainbow Dash, you can get rid of this card, like if you meet your home limit or something. If you want to get some kind of use out of this, then give it a Chic Beret, and all of a sudden it has 3 power, and it can be white or blue. For events, we have Gotta Go Fast because it is one of the better movement cards in the game. If your opponent is trying to slow you down with Troublemakers, then you can use this during a Troublemaker face-off. If your opponent forces you into a face-off using like some purple movement or something, then you're going to need something to react to it. And the best thing is, if you haven't heard already, if you use this to move a Holly Dash or a Wildfire or your Rainbow Dash, then you can proc any of their effects to move even more friends over. This is pretty much the best way to react to your opponent forcing you into a face-off that you didn't want to get into. Fear's Must Be Faced is kind of the same thing. It has 5 power, so it's really good in face-offs. It can be used during the Troublemaker phase, even if you don't actually have to deal with a Troublemaker. So it's kind of like giving 2 of your characters Swift, but they have to go to different problems. But like I said before, if one of the cards you happen to move is like a Holly Dash or a Wildfire or your main, then you can proc their effects too to move even more stuff. So if you use this and you move a Holly Dash to one problem, then you can use that Holly Dash's effect to move a Rarity Truly Outrageous for free. There's just a lot of little things you can do with movement when you have a deck surrounded by it. The fact that you're moving 2 characters is kind of strange because you're not really trying to initiate double face-offs, but if you have to go into a double face-off to win the game or something, then that's something to consider. Standstill is great because it stalls out your opponent while you're waiting to get a Rarity Truly Outrageous. If you happen to play this while you have Octavia on the board and your opponent's moving into an Octavia, then they have to pay that double action points twice to get there again. It has 5 power, so if you happen to flip it during a face-off, it's still a good card. Overall, there's no reason not to run Standstill. It's also good in the mirror match if your opponent's also running something with Rarity Truly Outrageous, because you can move that Rarity Truly Outrageous back, and they have to figure out a way to move it back again, like paying more action points. For resources, we have 3 Tangled Koifur because your opponent will have very little ways to deal with this. If you're in the mirror match and you know your opponent's going to be playing some Rarity Truly Outrageouses, then getting rid of them is just awesome. It gets rid of Spring Forward, it gets rid of everything. It gets rid of everything. And the 3 most popular colors right now are blue, white, and yellow, and none of them have a way to deal with Tangled Koifur. 3 power sucks, so you never want to flip it during a face-off, but that's okay. You probably don't remember this unless you're like a hardcore Kudo fan, but I said before that Chic Beret has a lot of external uses that make it a great card. And today, you get to hear me talk about those external uses. So, you're thinking that playing this card is kind of dumb because it costs 3, it only gives +1 power. It turns a character white, but whatever. But I'm going to go over why this is actually one of the most important cards in the deck. I'm going to get the big obvious one out of the way first. If you play this on a Rarity Truly Outrageous, then you've pretty much won the entire game. Because now Rarity is at 3 power. See, the balancer with Rarity Truly Outrageous was the fact that she only had 2 power. So if you wanted to use her to solve the 4 of one color and 3 of another color problems, you had to have a bunch of other cards there too. If you put this on your Rarity Truly Outrageous, then all of a sudden she's at 3 power, which means if you move like a blue card with 4 power, like Holly Dash, over to a problem, and you bring that Rarity Truly Outrageous, then those 2 by themselves can solve the problem and create the continuous get 3 bonus points every turn loop. This also has metagame applications, because let's say you're fighting against a pink deck, and you know your opponent has some downright dangerouses in their hand. All you have to do is put that Chic Beret on your Rarity, boom, all of a sudden, it's not a downright dangerous target anymore. Your opponent can't snipe it with responsibility pie because you're never keeping your Rarity Truly Outrageous on a problem. Your opponent can't big top you because you aren't staying at the problem and letting face-offs happen. At that point, really the only thing that can stop your rarity is Tangled Koifur or your opponent playing a really movement-heavy purple deck. It has 6 power, so it can help you win face-offs if you happen to flip it or something. You only have to pay 1 action point to move it to another friend if you happen to need it on something else until you get your rarity in play. That's another thing, it makes one of your characters white, so if like you happen to only be able to get like a Scootaloo or something in play and you don't have any white cards to fulfill those requirements, but you have a Truly Outrageous or a Virtuoso in your hand, all you gots to do is play this card. All of a sudden, this character's going to be white this turn. Oh, look at that, I'm meeting white color requirements. Boom, 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 boom. The versatility to change between the 2 colors each turn is just ridiculous. It takes your 2 power ponies that are like Wildfire, Scootaloo, Sapphire Shores, so on and so forth, and makes them 3 power so that they can actually meet the lower of the color requirements on all of your problems. It stacks, so if you happen to get like 2 of these on a Rarity Truly Outrageous, then it can meet your 4 color requirements, and you only need 3 power to solve the other one. You probably never need to do that, like trying to never do that, but it's just something to consider. Overall, if you look at this as a straight up counter the meta card, it's actually very, very crucial to play this card to counter a lot of things in the metagame. We're also using it to specifically give us the 1 boost we need to make Rarity Truly Outrageous actually work. I've gone through and meticulously gone through every detail of this card to make sure it was the absolute perfect card for this deck, and it is. For troublemakers, yellow Parasprite, get rid of your opponent's hands. Duh. If you're watching a deck about the metagame, then you should know this all by now. Manticore is one of the best stalling troublemakers that you can find because it flips 2 cards during the face-off, and that is very important because most of the cards that we're going to be running in this deck have 4 power or more. We flip 2 cards with 4 power. This becomes a 12. It's very hard to deal with early in the game for your opponent. Your opponent's got to collect up a few friends, make sure that they have enough to deal with this, and that can actually take 1 or 2 turns away from your opponent's planning. And finally, we're running 2 Flutterbat. A lot of people are going to question this and be like, oh, well, like, what exactly does Flutterbat do for this deck? Flutterbat is, again, a very anti-meta card. It always stays on the problem that has the least amount of friends, so it's very hard for your opponent to deal with. They can't just pile up a bunch of friends on one problem, wait a turn, and then deal with it, because Flutterbat's going to fly off to the other problem as soon as it becomes their troublemaker phase again. It does move out of the way and let your opponent solve the problem, but it makes it nearly impossible for double face-offs to occur, which is very good. It also stays in play for a very, very long time because your opponent can't actually do anything to deal with it, and that is awesome because that means as soon as you play this, you have all the time in the world to flip your Rainbow Dash. If you want to take this out for a troublemaker that is a villain, then be my guest. Try it out. I've tried it out, and it didn't work very well for me. I didn't like the fact that there was something that I also had to play around. I like things that just my opponent has to deal with. I played around with Chrysalis, and I didn't like that because I had to keep exhausting one of my friends, which was normally Holly Dash, which essentially made her useless. I didn't like Ahuizotl because I didn't like having to keep moving my friends home and keep having to pay the action points to move them back. Just overall, I didn't like troublemakers. I didn't like Nightmare Moon either because I didn't like having to get rid of my hand. Although if I had to pick one, Nightmare Moon is probably the best because getting to draw 3 cards means you might get to draw a Truly Outrageous if you didn't have one in your hand. For our problem deck, you're going to see something pretty standard. It's very meticulously picked, but standard nonetheless. Cloud Bursting, because when you're running a main that needs to actually confront a problem to flip, you normally want to run the 1/1/1 so that you can actually do it very quickly. You just smack a troublemaker on this, you move over your Rainbow Dash, and you play a white friend. Very simple. Clearing Gloomy Skies is just so ridiculously perfect. I seriously can't even believe this card is real. It takes 9 for your opponent to solve. It has a bonus of 3, so we can use it to Rarity auto win. It takes 4 blue power, perfect, 3 white power, perfect, and if you have at least 2 Pegasus, your main, and 1 Holly Dash or Wildfire or pretty much anything else, if your opponent forces you into a face-off, you get +1 power during the face-off, and that's not bad at all. Do I really need to say something else on it? It's just a good card and perfect for this deck. Problem with Parasprites, has a bonus of 3, takes 4 blue, 3 of something else. A Stitch in Time takes 4 white and 3 of something else. These are a lot more inconsistent. I really don't like getting these, but if I happen to get any of the problems that need 4 white and 3 of something else, then you just gotta deal with it, you know? Get like Holly Dash, Sapphire Shores, and a Rarity Truly Outrageous, and nothing really changes. Same deal, and same deal. A lot of these problems have some kind of effect that you can use. This is probably the best of them because every time you confront it, you can frighten one of your opponent's characters, and that's just hilarious. But most of these, it's just they have 3 bonus, and they can be exploited with Rarity. That's really it. I've gone over these cards for like half an hour, but let's see if there's anything I can tell you to help you compete in the metagame. When you're fighting against purple, they are always going to try to force you into face-offs, because if they can force you into a face-off and win using something like Lady Justice or Spring Forward, then they can actually take advantage of the fact that you're running all problems with a bonus of 3. Because they win the face-off and they get the 3 bonus, and then it flips, and there's a chance that if they get another turn at it, they can get the bonus for that and force another face-off, and they can pretty much outplay you. Tangled Koifur on Spring Forward because it's going to be their absolute strongest game-winning card. Never use it on an Ursa Vanquisher because it's just going to go back to their hands. Don't even try it. Just save up a few extra action points because you're going to need to move extra friends when it comes down to it. When you're up against pink, always be aware that Downright Dangerous is a card. Try to bait it out if you can. Maybe get some Wildfires on the field. Maybe not immediately go for the Rarity auto win. Pink is probably the most dangerous color you could possibly face with this kind of deck because it's all about getting rid of friends, and as soon as your rarity is gone, then your main core strategy is gone and you'll have to move on to something else. Honestly, this deck has very good face-off winning potential. You could totally pull off just beating them in face-offs over and over again, but the whole rarity strategy will go if you can't bait out the Downright Dangerouses or get a Chic Beret in play. When you're up against blue decks, if they are using white, then they're probably using the same strategy as you, and it's a mirror match. Just save your Tangled Koifurs for the Holly Dashes if you have to, but mainly use them on Truly Outrageous. If they're running blue and something else, then you don't really have to worry about the blue. Chances are what they're trying to do is they're trying to win face-offs, and you're never going to let a face-off happen because you don't want face-offs to happen, you just want a Rarity auto-win. Blue itself does not have an answer for Rarity Truly Outrageous, so let Truly Outrageous carry you to the wings of freedom. Other white decks are obviously a problem, like I was talking about before. Tangled Koifur on Rarity Truly Outrageous every single time. Standstill on Rarity Truly Outrageous every single time. It's pretty much a game of who can pull off Rarity Truly Outrageous and win the game first. You have a slight advantage because in order for Rarity Truly Outrageous to actually be pulled off, you have to pay to move other friends, whereas if you're using a blue deck, like we are, you can just pay 2 to move Holly Dash, or your main, or something else, and then move your rarity for free. So you win in the action points race. Yellow decks are also about winning the face-offs. There are some very hefty problems that can arise when you're fighting against yellow. Not a lot of yellow decks use too many bandages, but if it is a yellow deck that's using too many bandages, then they're going to hit down your Rarity Truly Outrageous, and that is going to cause a lot of problems. If your opponent isn't running too many bandages, as they probably won't be, then chances are it's a face-off winning deck, again, as with just about everything else. Let them have their silly face-off winning potential, whatever they want to do. Even if they want to initiate a bunch of double face-offs, then who really cares? Even if they win those, then you're going to get double the points with Rarity Truly Outrageous because the problems are going to flip. You're going to be able to move Rarity Truly Outrageous over there, get the bonus for solving it first, and then move her home and get the bonus again. You're always going to win a victory point race like that against yellow. Just remember that if your Rarity Truly Outrageous whole strategy thing fails, you've probably lost the entire game because winning face-offs against yellow is a nightmare. And it's not just what they have on the field. You could easily flood the field with like Pegasus and stuff, but you can't keep up with all those critter cavalries and the stuff like that. The yays, the whatever. If you have to go into a face-off, remember that yay is a card and always try to keep the fight on your problem. When you're up against orange, you have to play your Rarity Truly Outrageous as soon as possible. My normal thing is to keep Rarity Truly Outrageous in your hand until you can actually use it to accomplish something, but you can't do that against orange. Orange is so hands deadly in this metagame right now. As soon as they drop like one Royal Earth Pony Guard or whatever it's called, they're going to look at your hand, they're going to see Rarity, they're going to immediately discard it, and all of a sudden, one of your main strategies is completely ruined. And you can win face-offs against Orange. It is very possible. But if your opponent is smart, they're running something like Big Mac, Immense, and they're running a whole bunch of other cards, Barnyard Razor. They're running everything they need to keep themselves at maximum power at all times. You have to play this deck kind of like a rush deck when you're up against Orange, because they're going to be solving your problem a whole lot. They have all the power they need to just go and solve your problem and get the bonus before you do. They have the hand control to get rid of your Rarity Truly Outrageous, your Holly Dash, your Wildfire, your Octavia. They can get rid of everything that would actually win you the game. So against every other color, you can play slow, methodically, play like a control deck with some aggro built in late game. When you're playing against Orange, you have to play super fast, super aggressive, make it happen right now. Right now. Well, there's really not a whole bunch of general tips I can give you. I pretty much said everything I needed to in the actual video itself. This video is like half an hour long. Always try to save up. Never try to get your Rarity Truly Outrageous on the field immediately because there's no reason for it. Don't actually start playing cards until you know you can solve a problem and get that bonus, or get your Rarity engine going, or get your Rainbow Dash flip. That's what I meant to say, Rainbow Dash. Play safe. Don't underestimate Chic Beret. You can do a lot of really amazing things. I really wouldn't recommend this deck for beginners if you've just like been looking around and you don't really know how to play the game really, and you don't have very much experience. You're gonna absolutely hate this deck. You're gonna think this deck is awful. To advanced players, there's really not a whole bunch I need to tell you because you probably understand where I was going with this deck and what you should be doing to win, and why I truly believe this deck can highly outdo Ballroom Blitz if somebody actually takes it seriously and takes it to a competitive scene. One more quick thing about color matchups. The deck that absolutely does the best against this deck is a purple-pink, so if you happen to be fighting against purple-pink, you need to be playing very cautiously. Pink is only a problem when it's combined with purple. If you're fighting like a pink-white or a pink-yellow or something, don't even worry about it. Pink-purple is the absolute deadliest matchup against this deck. Ballroom Blitz can get kind of hectic, but I've already said that I think this deck has a slight advantage over it. It's going to be a very close match. It's going to be whoever can manage their rarity the best, but in the end, I believe this deck has a slight advantage because it can do something other than just rarity and rush with critters. Troublemaker heavy decks are also kind of annoying. If you're fighting against a Troublemaker, really heavy Troublemaker deck, then try to get a Gotta Go Fast in your hands. Try to get that Holly Dash out there, that Wildfire out there. Just pile a whole bunch of cards on top of the Troublemaker and get rid of it as quickly as possible because it does slow you down. And that's about it. I think I am done talking. It has been like 35 minutes. I am totally done talking. I made the huge mistake of declaring one deck the best in a card game on the internet, so please leave your comments below letting me know what you think is the best deck, what you think the flaws of the deck are, and what your actual opinions are on the deck. If you try out the deck and you do really well with it, please let me know. I would be super happy to hear that somebody took my deck to a locals and stomped face or something like that. That would just make me absolutely the happiest kudo in the world. And if you're trying out the deck and you just can't get it to work for you, then let me know and maybe we'll set up like a little training session or something. You know, we could, I could give you some advice or whatever. If you need to get a hold of me on Skype, then just do it. I do not mind talking to you guys on Skype at all. Just search for Kudo-kun. You should see a bunch of kids playing soccer, and that is me. If you enjoyed this video, which you probably didn't because you don't think this is the best deck in the world, then please leave it a like. Those things really do help me out. And finally, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudo news. Please join us next time for the finale of MLP month, and I'm going to go get me some water or something because my mouth is dry. See you then, MLP fans.